There are two ways of spreading the light: to be the candle or to be the mirror that reflects it. Glossophobia is the fear of public speaking. So many people today specifically fear it. And the Statistics for Brain Research Institute put out some surprising and somewhat unfortunate numbers in 2016. 74% of people are born with the fear, not just being scared of, but the fear of public speaking. And Jerry Seinfeld's interpretation of some former numbers similar to that was that at a funeral, people prefer to be in the coffin than actually giving the eulogy. It's a very unfortunate turn of events. But so often, we forget things about public speaking. We see people do it. Sometimes in a high school class or a college course, we're forced to participate, but we hate it and we leave it behind, or so we think. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry said that only the unknown frightens men. But once a man has faced the unknown, that terror becomes the known. And so, there are three things that inhibit people from public speaking. First of all, they've never done it before. Second of all, there's the fear that people are not going to interpret what they say right. And then thirdly, the one that drives most people away, they're scared of what people's opinion of them will be. But there are ways that we can get used to this. And the first of all is to practice it. Public speaking isn't just for actors and lawyers or politicians. We use it every day. When we speak to a single person, the clarity that we speak is apparent if we have been a public speaker. The clarity of thought and the process that we articulate our words improves after public speaking. So we use it every day. Those who don't public speak, you can tell when you're simply talking to them in a one-on-one. But then it's used for occupations. We use it in boardrooms for those who are CEOs or presenters for large businesses. We use it for interviews when we're trying to obtain a new job, or when we're trying to go someplace where we need to apply. There are so many different areas that we use it every single day in different ways. It's not just for those who we see on TV or that we ridicule for their political views. It's for everyone. But so often we excuse ourselves because we think ourselves inadequate. But there's a primary example of someone who overcame that, and that was Helen Keller. Born blind and deaf, for the last 50 years of her life, she lectured to those like her with disabilities, empowering them to push beyond, to grow to be more than themselves, as she had. She could never hear her words. She could never see the effects of them, but she knew, and she was told through sign language and the hand for blind of how much her words meant to them. She wasn't held back by anything, and neither should we. But so often, even though many of us understand the ability that public speaking gives us in one-on-one, or interviews, or in the boardroom, we forget the power of public speaking beyond that. We can think of very momentous speeches, such as John F. Kennedy's inaugural speech, where he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." Or of Martin Luther King's famous "I Have a Dream" speech. What did they accomplish? They changed the world. Through John F. Kennedy's inaugural speech, he showed the world, both in allies and the Soviets, in the midst of the Cold War, that the United States was ready for peace and for cooperation, that it was no longer a time to be at odds. He showed the world through one speech that the United States was ready. Martin Luther King's famous speech showed the United States that it was time to have equal rights for all men. The power can never be overemphasized. But my favorite example is Patrick Henry and his famous speech on March 23rd, 1775. A gathering was held to decide if Virginia would muster a militia to fight against British oppression. Patrick Henry's speech, so famously recorded, was at that gathering. Men present would have been those such as Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and other very famous men. His speech would turn the tide of the vote, and the militia of that state would be trained to fight Britain. Virginia, one of the most important states in the American Revolution, was turned because of a single speech. And we remember the words, "Is life so dear, or is peace so sweet as to be bought at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. As for me, I know not what course others may take, but give me liberty or give me death." And at the end, he momentously made the sign of simply killing himself with his letter opener to illustrate how important it was to him. Through his speech and his standing up and fighting for what he believed in, not with the might of his arm, but with his words, he changed the course of a nation and perhaps the entire world. Too often we choose to be the mirror, not the candle that spreads the light. Robin Williams once said, "No matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world. It's up to us to choose to be the candle. It's up to us to choose just how brightly we will shine."